that's okay. I've actually got something to say about the Virgin Media, but again, it was to Stephen Llewellyn, so I'll need to wait till he comes back in.
No, that's okay. I think we can probably bring Stephen back in if he manages to get on to the meeting. Louise, are you okay with that as well?
Yeah, that's it. Actually, my question's now been answered, so it's fine. It's all good.
Okay, so I'll come back to Mary when Stephen comes back on the meeting. The next agenda item is active and creative communities, and welcome to Heather Liddle. Heather, I think this is the first time you've been on the Shots meeting, so welcome. If you would like to go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. I haven't really prepared anything to say other than I'll give you a bit of background, and then I'm happy to take any questions if that's okay with everyone. Just to give you some background then, so Active and Creative Communities was created April 2021. Those were services that previously were provided by arm's length organisations, so it was Culture and Leisure North Lanarkshire. So in the time that they've been back in the council, one of the things that we've been keen to do is to look to see how we can, I suppose, support wider community benefits by engaging with the local communities, by engaging with other services. So examples of some of the things we've done over the last year, we've offered subsidised leisure memberships out to, initially it was over 65s, that's now over 60s. We introduced a programme that we refer to as Active Teen, which is for 11 to 15-year-olds, and that provides free gym membership, off-peak gym membership for young people. We also added to that by providing free membership for young people who were studying during the school study periods. That was S4 to S6. We've been focusing much more in terms of what we refer to as active health. So we've been working with the NHS to provide specialist health services. That might be around sort of preventative work around pre-diabetes or obesity. We're introducing pre and postnatal care. So very much it gives you an idea of the direction that we're moving in, that we're probably moving away from the previous focus, which was the focus of income generation, to being much more about how we actually impact and make a difference to the community. We work very closely now with education colleagues. So we're just about to introduce a new programme for young people in the schools, which will provide them with a pathway to careers in health and fitness. All being well with that, and I'm expecting it to go well. We'll actually take that further and probably take it out into things like music production as well. So it's all really a focus on how we impact and how we offer our services to the community. So that's kind of the direction we're going in. It's very busy and still very early days, but I'm keen, I suppose, just to take some feedback and answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thanks very much for that, Heather. Does anyone have any questions for Heather? Louise, I see your hand was still up there. Yep. Do you want to come in at this point?
Oh, I do. Hold on a minute. I'll take my wee hand down. Thank you. Well, Heather, thanks for the update on that. Just a quick question or a couple of observations.
Sure.
And I didn't know about active and creative communities, so it was going to be one of my questions.
Okay.
When I came on tonight, but then you gave an introduction, so at least now I now understand what it is. Thank you very much. My question, my observation is this. Right, sorry, the lighting isn't very good where I'm sitting, but there seems to be a lot of support for kind of school age kids, and a lot of support for forgive the terminology, but the elderly or the elder members of our community, right?
Okay.
I suppose I'm just wondering, because a big chunk of the Shots community is actually of working age. Right. So question number one, what support is there for people, like me, that sit at this desk all day, every day, working? So I'm just wondering if there's anything for working age people. But then to piggyback on a couple of points that I've raised before that kind of feed into, I think, active health and or active and creative communities, I'm a member of Shots Leisure Centre. Right, now I know that for an extra couple of pounds a month, I could use all the facilities across North Lanarkshire, Wishaw, Airdrie, whatever else. But the point being is that I don't want to drive to Wishaw. It's not very green. I've had to spend half an hour in the car to go to the gym, then half an hour to come back, whereas the leisure centre's like 500 metres down the road, right? But there's a bit of a trend at the moment at Shotts Leisure Centre in that, like, there aren't an awful lot of classes on. I know that different things, it is on everybody's agenda, and I appreciate that, but I don't know what the answer is, because like some classes get put on in the day and people like me can't go to them because I'm working. And in the evening, so for example, last night I was supposed to go to circuits and then yoga, and it got cancelled. I was supposed to be at Zumba last week and it got cancelled at the last minute. So although it looks like the schedule in inverted brackets is pretty full, actually classes are cancelled at short notice, which effectively means that people are paying their membership at the leisure centre but not getting much in return for it. And I'm just wondering if that's something that you could pick up, or would that fall under the umbrella of active and creative communities?
I mean, yes, it absolutely does fall under our umbrella. I'm trying to think how I say this without it sounding like I'm making an excuse. The fitness classes are delivered by what we would refer to as group fitness instructors. They are not employees of the council. They are self-employed people that choose to come in and work. And a challenge that we have right across North Lanarkshire, not just in Shotts, but a challenge we sometimes have is there's not enough of them. So very often our ability to deliver classes as we would wish is kind of determined by what those fitness instructors choose to do. That type of model is the same model that's employed in every gym right across the land, both public and private gyms. So I fully understand what you're saying, and I can totally appreciate the frustration with that, and I'll certainly look into it. It's not something I can give a very easy answer to, I'm afraid, because these are not employees that well, they're not employees at all, that that we're able to sort of direct a bit more than we do, but I can certainly look into that. In terms of your first point, I agree with you. I think at the moment our focus has been very much on younger people and older people, and that's just really reflective of the areas of need that were identified. One of the things I'm really keen to do is to look at membership across the board. I'm not sure whether that's something that will be supported or not, but I am keen to look at ordinary members. I am one of those members and I pay my money the same way as everyone else does. I don't get any discounts. So I appreciate that and I understand, and I suppose I would just say to you, if you could bear with us, I would hope that something will be coming fairly soon on that, but it is relatively early days for the service and we have achieved a lot in a short period of time. But I completely agree that we need to focus on our wider membership.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. Just kind of to just to pick up on a point that you mentioned a few minutes ago, and it's not a criticism, it's just something that's happened over the past, I think, 6 to 8 months. And I do get the fact that the fitness instructors are not directly employed by North Lanarkshire Council. However, I don't know the background to it. Sorry, I don't know the background to it. I don't know the nitty-gritty of the details, but what I do know is that something happened in North Lanarkshire Leisure, or as it was NL Leisure, but now the council, discovered that there was a problem with the contracts, and then they renegotiated the contracts with the instructors. And as a result of that, an awful lot of instructors left because of the change in terms and conditions. So I don't know what drove that. I don't know what the outcome, or sorry, well, I do know what the outcome is. The outcome is that there are less instructors, which means that there are less classes, and then the classes that are on are being cancelled at short notice, or at least so that's a trend. Anyway, I'm not expecting you to have an answer to that. I'm just saying that is maybe part of the problem. I don't know.
Well, there's some element of truth in what you have said. Not that I'm suggesting that you're lying. There's an element in it that what you've said is correct. And in this forum, I'm not going to explain what that is. But if I could say to you that one of the things that happened as a direct result of that review was that the hourly rates for group fitness instructors was increased. That was the first time that had happened for quite a number of years. So ultimately, my position with the group fitness instructors is that they are self-employed workers. They can choose to provide a service or not provide a service. And ultimately, it was my responsibility to make sure that the council was legally correct in terms of how we engage with them. And that's probably as much as I could say. But there is, I understand what you're saying and I know what you're saying, but I don't think it would be appropriate for me to go into it in this forum.
Thanks very much, Louise. Sorry, Louise, did you want to come back in again? Or?
Genuinely didn't mean to push that button.
Your hand
Sorry.
pushed up. Thanks for that. Is there any other questions that we have for Heather? No. Can we possibly go back to Stephen then? Stephen, I think just you got cut off there, and I believe that Mary wanted to ask a few questions or a question there. Mary?
Can I go back to the Virgin Media?
Yeah, of course. I think that, you know, Stephen got cut off, so we said we would come back and that Stephen would look to answer that question. No problem.
Right. Stephen, am I picking you up as saying, because I listened to the last meeting, am I picking you up as saying the council position as they cannot stop the work that's happening in Shotts with Virgin Media?
That's correct, Mary. They're a utility, and through legislation, the utility companies can go ahead and do the work. The council have got no jurisdiction to stop the work.
Right. Well, according to the Chief Executive's office at Virgin Media, they are unable to undertake any work without a permit, and the council can accept or reject any permit applications, and that's also been supported by Ofcom. They say that as well. So I know you're saying that's the council position, and I've heard that.
Yeah,
I've heard that from another source as well.
That's the position that we have been given. That it's a utility company, and as a utility company, they are entitled via legislation to go ahead and do the work. If the council are unhappy with health and safety issues, the council can get involved, and as a national group across Scotland, and the council are on that. But utility companies have got, through legislation, a right to go ahead and do the works. And you'll see that not just in North Lanarkshire, but it actually takes place across the length and breadth of Scotland and Britain, and that's how it stands.
So who provides that advice?
Who provides what advice, Mary?
The advice that you've just said.
The advice I've got came from our legal services and also came from our head of roads.
Right. Well, that's what the Chief Executive's office at Virgin Media has said. I've got that back in an email, and Ofcom have also said that that's the case. The work can't go ahead unless the council grants the permit.
I don't think.
Just to give you that information.
Yeah, that's different from part of the next part was if there's issues with the work, then that was the question that was asked the last time. Is the council able to stop the work? And again, what we clarified the last time, we can raise it with them. But again, unless there's a real serious health and safety risk, then the council can't.
So did the council issue a permit then?
I've given you information today where there's 6 or 7, in fact there's 8 on that there's works ongoing just now. So if the works are ongoing, then it must have been sorted the way it should be, but without the specifics. So you asked me the specific one I was asked the last time, because we can get that information whether a permit was issued or not.
Because it is on the planning website, but there isn't access to the actual documents. But just to give you that information, that's the feedback that I got back.
And we're happy to clarify at the next one. I actually put out just now in terms of do we issue a permit, but I'm going to clarify again, Mary, so we're absolutely crystal clear on this. The information and advice I've been given is that the council cannot, utility companies, and we actually stated the legislation the last time, not sitting with it just now, but we stated the legislation as well that utility companies have got a right of access and a right to carry out the work, and the council can't stop it.
I'm not doubting what you said, Stephen. I'm just actually giving you that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Stephen, and thanks, Mary, for that. If I can move on to agenda item 4, which is the NHS Lanarkshire Tobacco Control Scheme.
Kenny,
Sorry, Mary.
Because I said that I wanted to come back as well. Well, I don't think I did actually say, but I wanted to come back on the complaint with the Scottish Ombudsman as well about the town vision. And I know Stephen's clarified that it wasn't a matter of the complaint not being upheld. It was a matter of it not being investigated. The information that we received, they cannot investigate something if it's not within their actual criteria. And I hear, Stephen, you know, you gave the list of reasons why they don't investigate. So it was just to reinforce that. But regarding the data analysis complaint that we submitted, that now has been re-looked at by the head of planning. First of all, to say we're happy with the outcome of that complaint, but again, the stage 2 process wasn't actually enacted. Regarding the data analysis, I'm just going to read this out. So she's partially upholding the complaint. The other part was the town vision consultation, and there was no intention to mislead. Just to refresh people's memories, there was 3 questions, three yes or no questions asked, and there was an analysis done, whereas whenever we did a freedom of information, we found the raw data did not match the analysis that was published and sent to the policy and strategy. So what the head...
Sorry, Mary, is that under town and community hubs and town vision?
Well, Stephen was speaking about the town vision complaint. That was why I was responding just now.
Yeah. Stephen, are you happy to take that just now, or would you like to leave that until 5/7?
Just to clarify, Chair, the reason I was given that update, it was kind of under matters arising from the last time, and it was something we were asked to clarify in terms of, I think I'd said that the complaint was not upheld, but in fact the complaint, the Ombudsman decided not to investigate. So I was just clarifying. I was asked via Leanne to clarify if that as matters arising, and that's what we've done.
No, great. I'm happy. No, that's absolutely fantastic, and I'm happy for Mary to carry on with that. Carry on, Mary. Sorry.
Right. Well, it's in context of what was being said. So the head of planning is saying, regarding the differences in the data outcomes, there was no intention to mislead or misrepresent the outcome of the consultation, and on reflection, she agreed that it would perhaps have been more straightforward to directly report the responses to the individual questions from the online survey. And in order to move forward in a constructive manner, she goes on to talk about how we can further engage in future consultations. But that'll come under point 5 then, item 5. Okay.
Okay, we're happy to move on with that. Are you happy with that, Mary? And we can raise that at item 5. Yep, 7 I think it is, isn't it? You okay with that?
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. If we can move on to agenda item 4, we have NHS Lanarkshire Tobacco Control Team, and welcome Karen. I believe Karen's going to speak to this point.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm not sure if you've got the presentation or not, or if you want to share it. If Colin's got it, can you share the presentation, Colin? Would that be okay? Oh, I can't hear you.
We do have the presentation, Karen.
Okay.
There we go. He's sharing it now.
Oh, perfect. Right. Okay, that's great. And will somebody, Colin, will you be able to move it on if I just say next slide? Is that all right? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity to provide an update tonight on the work that we are doing across NHS Lanarkshire Tobacco Control Team. My name's Karen Mather, and I'm the Tobacco Control Team leader for the prevention and protection actions contained within our tobacco strategy. Colin, next slide, please. So I'm not sure if you can see that. Obviously, you can see my notes as well, actually. So just to kind of set the scene in terms of the data, Scottish Government set us an ambitious target to achieve an overall smoking prevalence of 5% by 2034. The graph on this slide shows that the smoking prevalence for adults in Lanarkshire, and whilst again positively we're seeing a reduction in prevalence of smoking overall, which has been declining in Lanarkshire, We're also projected to have a shortfall of our own strategy target of 11% by 2022, and that's in line with what's happening across the national data as well. So whilst we've seen a reduction in prevalence across Lanarkshire, as I say, we're still seeing a shortfall in terms of meeting our targets. Just next slide, Colin, please. Colin, I don't know if you can maybe put it onto the main screen rather than it being with the notice, if that's okay. Can you do that? If not, it's okay. You can leave it just as it is, it's fine. So just in terms of second-hand smoke exposure, this data just shows the comparisons of second-hand smoke exposure at what we call our 27 to 30-month child health reviews, which are carried out by our health visitors. So our target in Lanarkshire was 5% by 2022, and happy to say that we have achieved that across Lanarkshire at 4.4% of children being exposed at the child health reviews for 27 to 30 months. But what we do know is that inequality still exists, with many children still being exposed to second-hand smoke in areas of high deprivation. So as you can see from the chart, SIND 1 and 2 areas for Lanarkshire, unfortunately in SIND 1 area, we still have 8% of children being exposed to second-hand smoke in the household at 27 to 30 months, with 5.1% across SIND 2 areas. Next slide, Colin, please. So in Lanarkshire, we do have our own tobacco control strategy. Not all health boards have their own tobacco control strategy, but in Lanarkshire we do, which sets out our strategic direction and action plan for tobacco control and has a vision for our society to have for children, which is smoke-free. And that's really the main focus of our tobacco control programme, and where all adults are positive smoke-free role models, whether they smoke or not. And with all our work that we do, there is obviously our health inequalities focus, and children and families are central to all the work that we do. The strategy has 4 main priority areas, and with actions that cut across 26 themes. However, as part of our remobilisation plans from COVID, we reduced the number of themes to 10 themes across the strategy, but we still have 140 actions within our strategy that we need to achieve by 2023. With COVID, we were given an extension to 2024 for our actions, so we're working between 2023 and 2024 to achieve those actions. Next slide, please, Colin. Oh, okay. Do you want to just move it on now to the tobacco control one? Perfect. That one, that's great. Thank you, Colin. So as I say, across our tobacco control strategy, we have 10 thematic working groups, and the idea, this is just to give you an idea of the themes that we work across with many partners that we're involved in to meet the aims of our tobacco control strategy. So we have 10 groups which have a variety of skill mix from staff from the tobacco control team, and are led by a lead officer. Of course, we can't achieve all those actions on our own. We need to work with partners and people around this group, across other areas, across other community boards, to achieve the actions within our tobacco control strategy. So we range from availability enforcement, so working with trading standards, to working with our education colleagues, working with our local authority colleagues in terms of in terms of policy and legislation, and also sharing good practice around our training, etc. Next slide, please, Colin. So this one's just to kind of give you a wee bit of an idea of some of the work that we had done last year across our Quit Your Way service. So during COVID, our Quit Your Way service, which was classed as an essential service, continued to operate despite our nurses being redeployed and obviously helping out with the pressures across the acute services. So we adapted our model to support our clients, providing a weekly telephone support, and also delivering nicotine replacement to our clients, which is a home delivery service that we do. That service still does continue, so we still deliver our nicotine replacement products to our clients at home, and we still also provide telephone support to our clients as well. So people who smoke can access our services, which I'll give you the number at the end of the presentation, but they can also get support from local pharmacies as well, who also provide them with behavioural support and nicotine replacement. COVID has also introduced us more to digital health, so we're testing out the use of video consultation platforms like Near Me, and we've done a test of change with our pregnancy clients, which worked well, and we're also looking to do a test of change with people who smoke and who also have mental health conditions as well. So we're really kind of trying to adapt our service to meet the needs of the community and the local people. Next slide, please, Colin. Thank you. So during COVID and through, obviously, as I say, some changes through our staff redeployment within our team, the protection and prevention elements of the tobacco control programme were mostly stood down. But from this slide, you can just see that there's a number of projects that we were able to achieve, and some of them have been they've been delivered out in the community. So we have our Positive Smoke-Free Role Models project. We have our Jenny and the Bear swim time programme. We've got a number of communication methods that we use, social media toolkits that we send out and share with partners. We also, in partnership with Landed, which is a peer education service across in Lanarkshire, we worked with them, and a tobacco and cannabis consultation was completed in June 2021, which we had 561 young people participating in. There is a report available on that cannabis and tobacco consultation, which I'd be happy to share with you. As I say, my details will be at the end of the presentation, so I'd be happy to share that with anybody that's interested in the outcome from that. And we also, despite not being able to do face-to-face training, we also delivered a number of online training to any leisure staff and across community link workers, and also through our Healthy Schools programme as well. Next slide, please, Colin. So this slide is really just to show you some of the plans that we are got for 22-23, and happy to come back if there's a need for any update on any of these programmes of work, or I'm happy to take any questions if anybody's got any questions tonight. So really, to help us meet our targets for our Quit Your Waste service, then we're going to be testing out some new approaches with our priority groups of clients. So that's our pregnancy clients, our mental health clients, and also we're going to be doing some work with some of our homeless units as well within Lanarkshire. Some people might be aware that there's been an extension to the indoor smoking ban, which is the prohibition of smoking outside hospital buildings. So we are in the process of working with our colleagues to plan a communication plan to support patients, staff and visitors with the new regulations that are coming in. So the new regulations go live on the 5th of September, which means that they'll not be allowed to smoke within 15 metres of the outside buildings. So there are regulations that have been passed by Parliament, and that goes live on the 5th of September. We're going to be doing a lot of work around engagement and consultation, and really if we make sure that we're consulting with people who have, like our mental health services, our pregnancy services, and particularly young people, because as I say, at the heart of our tobacco control strategy is young people, then we want to look to see how we can improve our service provision for these groups of people. We're also looking to expand and deliver more on our second-hand smoke initiatives. So as I said, we've got our Jenny and the Bear, which is a programme that we deliver that raises awareness around second-hand smoke, but we're keen to look at other opportunities to expand that out, maybe into library settings or baby massage, etc. And as always, we're looking to work with our education colleagues, and in partnership, we're looking to work with our additional support needs schools, and planning to look at developing resources that are specific for the needs of children that attend those schools. We also have our Positive Smoke-Free Role Models projects, and as I said, that's for anybody in any community who are keen to pledge to become a positive smoke-free role models. We're linked in with Community Solutions, and people can pledge to become a role model within their community, whether they're a smoker or not, which we're hoping. At the moment, we've got 200 pledges across the North area, which is great. Next slide, please, Colin. So really, our ask from the tobacco control team to the community board is that, you know, if you've got the opportunity to support our campaign and our key messages, We do have social media toolkits that are available, which people can request through our comms lead and share with their own partner organisations, or you can sign up to or like our Facebook page and share our messages that we've got on that on a regular basis. We've also got a lot of information on our Quit Your Way site, which is on the NHS Lanarkshire website. And as I've said, becoming a positive smoke-free role model is the key thing that we would ask everybody to do and promote the project within your communities as well, and asking that you raise awareness around tobacco control and promote the Quit Your Way services within your community and with people that you work with as well. And just your next slide, please, Colin. So that's just some information about the Quit Your Way services for people who are either wanting to stop smoking, or if you want to pass it on to anybody, then there's our helpline where people can get access to support, and also through the Quit Your Way Scotland phone number as well for people to get access, or through the website. And I think that's just the last slide then, Colin, if you want to just move on. So again, that was probably just a wee kind of whistle-stop tour of some of the work that we've done across the tobacco control team, and some of the work that we're planning across the tobacco control team. And just happy again, as I say, to take any questions, and yeah, if anybody's got any queries that they want to ask, or they're looking for any further information from the tobacco control team, or then happy to pass that on to you. So thank you again. Oh, I think I can't hear you, Ken. Sorry.
Sorry, I thought I'd pressed that. Thank you very much for that, Karen. Sorry about that. That was a really interesting presentation. It would be great if the community board could support that in any way possible through social media or whatever. Does anyone have any questions or observations for Karen? Hi, Louise. Do you want to come in?
I do. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Karen. Karen, thanks for your presentation. Just kind of a few questions and listen, I say this as somebody that has sat on Zoom meetings from 9 o'clock. You can tell by my tired eyes that I've sat on Zoom meetings all day today and my head is burst, but that's fine. And I should declare an interest, given your topic, that I don't smoke, and I've never smoked, and I don't intend to start smoking. So that's all good. Basically, I'm just trying to understand genuinely why this presentation was being rolled out to the community board, and maybe not directed maybe more towards elected members. And again, I speak as somebody who used to be an elected member. Forgive the blunt statement. It is. I was just like scrolling down some notes. I'm just trying to articulate that it's not the role of well, at least I don't think it is, the role of the community board to promote the objectives of the tobacco control team. I thought this was a forum for the local community to raise matters that are important to them. But since we're talking about tobacco control, can I just ask like some very specific questions? So what problems with tobacco control have you identified specifically relating to Fertisset Ward? Is there a plan of action in place to help address those? And if we kind of ring fence the community board to the side just for a second, more importantly, how do members of the community engage directly with your team if they want to help control their tobacco use or exposure?
Okay, thanks, Louise. Hopefully I can try and address some of those points that you've raised. So initially, I suppose we were given the opportunity to come along to the board by a colleague who was working within our team, and had arranged for us to have a slot, if you like, on the agendas from the community board. So I suppose any opportunity that we can to raise awareness around tobacco control, then we'll obviously use the opportunities and the platforms to do that. So so hopefully there'll be some information that will be relevant for members of the meeting here. In terms of a plan of action, we obviously have our tobacco control strategy, which is in place at the moment, and the actions that we have through that strategy are we have project plans that are in place to deliver on those actions, which will then hopefully reach our targets that we have. So we do have specific targets around prevalence of smoking, to reduce the prevalence of smoking across Lancashire, and also to reduce second-hand smoke exposure. And we also work towards meeting the actions within our National Tobacco Control Strategy. In terms of members from this community, and the ask, I suppose, would be for members to look up to signing up to the Positive Smoke-Free Role Models project. So whether you're a smoker or not, then it's about having, pledging, if you like, to be a positive smoke-free role model within your community, and encouraging others to also do that. And we're hoping from that project that people, whether they smoke or not, people will look to maybe then think about changing their behaviour. Whether that's, if they're a smoker, then thinking about stopping smoking. If they're maybe smoking among around about their children, then it's about reducing exposure to second-hand smoke with their children and families. But if they're not a smoker, then that's still fine. People can still have, promote key messages with whatever way they're within their communities or wherever it is that they work. So so that's the ask, I suppose, from the community board, is to become positive smoke-free role models in the community, and the work and the role that you have within this within your own community.
No, that's it. Listen, thank you for that. Just observation. I go out walking most mornings before I start work, because otherwise I sit at this desk all day, every day. Right. One thing that I have noticed since the schools have gone back last week, that kids aren't smoking like cigarettes. They've got all those vapes, and I don't know. Listen, again, I've never touched a vape. I wouldn't touch a vape. I've got no interest in doing it. But I mean, does that? I mean, I'm just trying to kind of like, in my head, if somebody said, I want to give up smoking, or I don't want to pass on secondhand smoke, then what practically can they do? Like, how do they engage with your team to get help and the support that they need?
Yep. So if somebody wants to make a change to their behaviour and stop smoking, then the last slide would give them that information. They can phone the helpline, and they would get put through to one of our advisors, who would be able to offer them support to help them stop smoking. They would get support weekly, and then they would get their nicotine replacement. If they chose to use nicotine replacements to help them stop smoking, they would get that delivered to their house. We also have access, and people can have access to their pharmacies as well. So somebody could just walk in off the street and go to their pharmacy and sign up to the Stop Smoking service and get support to stop smoking that way as well. So that's what we're trying to encourage. There's also the Quit Your Way Scotland phone number that people can phone as well, which again is on the last slide, and that's where people can access support to help them stop smoking. In terms of e-cigarettes, some people do choose to use e-cigarettes as a method of smoking cessation. But you're absolutely right, the increase in young people using e-cigarettes has significantly increased. And even I know in my own estate, when I walk around, I see litter, unfortunately, from the e-cigarette packages. There was a vaping consultation that was carried out just recently. I am from Scottish Government, and we're awaiting the report from that. That was the vaping consultation, was to look to see if they should bring in more restrictions around advertising and also selling of e-cigarettes. So in terms of some e-cigarettes, like some of the ones you're probably talking about, the disposable ones, people can buy them at the moment on a special offer, 3 for £10 type of thing. So the restrictions are maybe going to be coming in to prevent that from happening, which will also then prevent young people from buying them as well. So there are hopefully some further restrictions coming in around e-cigarettes. But you're right, a lot of young people, the prevalence of smoking around young people is lower, but the prevalence of e-cigarette use seems to be slightly higher, unfortunately. So that is an issue that we are addressing through education, through our secondary schools, and linking in with our healthy schools colleagues.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Louise, for the question, and thanks so much, Karen, for your presentation, certainly raising awareness and the contacts. I think that, yes, I know that Louise raised the issue of, why should we have that on the community board. I think it's really important that we have, these health things on the community board and make people aware of, the sources that are and resources that are available. So thanks so much for coming along tonight.
Thank
If we can
you.
move on, if I can move on to agenda item 5, and that's local priorities, mental health and wellbeing. I don't know, Leanne, do we have an NHS rep available, or are you going to speak to that tonight?
We don't have a representative tonight, Chair, from NHS Lanarkshire, but I can say a very short bit about the work that we are doing in terms of the mapping across the strategic mental health and wellbeing priority. So obviously the health improvement lead locally will play a role in kind of leading and driving and working with local organisations around mental health improvement work under the Lloyd priority. But I just thought I would say a wee bit about this one. So we're doing some work just now, myself and the Council's business intelligence team, along with colleagues from health improvement, with Jenny Hutton, who's the Good Mental Health for All lead for North Lanarkshire, recognising that there are a number of community boards who have either got mental health as a specific priority or where mental health is threaded throughout other priorities. So what we've been doing is we've been doing some work to map across between the kind of strategic priorities and approaches to mental health across North Lanarkshire and under Good Mental Health for All, and linking that into where there's a Lloyd priority to look at where there are similarities and where there are connections to be made. That's just to make sure that we're avoiding duplication and looking for those opportunities to better align the local activity based on local need with the kind of the strategies and the kind of wider approaches within North Lanarkshire. And this will ultimately inform how the health improvement teams will be able to kind of coordinate and support activity linked to the mental health priorities, obviously linking in with the wealth of local voluntary and community organisations that are doing that type of activity. So it was just a very brief word on that, just to say that there is work to map that activity, but I don't have the specific update. That would come from the health improvement lead, who's unfortunately not with us tonight.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got a question from Louise there that says, what are the high-level strategic priorities for the Fetisset ward, and also have these been determined by NLC, the community, or both? If you can see that in the chat bar, Leanne.
Yeah, so sorry, Louise, can I just clarify, you meaning the local outcome improvement plan priorities?
No, listen, I'm just, I suppose it's more of a bugbear I've got maybe with my own work, because I get bombarded with what's known as key messages all the time. And a key message is something that should be business as usual, right? And I was just kind of responding to the comment that you put in the chat bar, saying that it's the role of the community board to discuss local matters of local concern and also strategic priorities of importance to local communities, including sharing key messages and looking at local approaches to delivery of strategic priorities. I mean, perhaps I should know, I've probably got it in an email somewhere, but just kind of, I'm just trying to understand, what are the high level priorities for Fetisset ward, and how were they determined?
So the priorities for the Shotts Community Board area are the local outcome improvement plan priorities, which are the subject of the agenda there under local priorities. Those were set through extensive engagement with local communities throughout 2020 and into 2021, and then there was a kind of further extensive work to work through what the feedback for that engagement was with local communities and with representatives who were already involved through the community boards, to make sense of that and to turn it into a set of kind of clear priorities for the area. So the priorities that you see on the agenda there are the priorities for the Shotts area as determined through that process, and they are around mental health and wellbeing, community engagement, community safety, environment and digital inclusion, town and community hubs and town vision. That's the key priorities. However, and those are the priorities that the community boards will and should be focusing on driving with community planning partners in this particular area. There's obviously opportunities for communities to raise other issues of interest or importance to them throughout the community matters part of the agenda, or indeed at any time throughout the agenda. But I suppose the other point that I was kind of making there was to say there will also be more strategic priorities that are a priority across North Lanarkshire that community planning partners will want to bring through community boards, and it's entirely appropriate to do that because the community boards have been identified as the key mechanism for community planning partners to engage with communities. They're not the only way that they engage. There's obviously a need for much more targeted engagement, whether that's online or whether it's with particular target groups or particular geographic communities. But the community boards have been identified as the community planning partnerships key engagement mechanism, so that the kind of I suppose the place that we would bring a lot of these kind of issues either in the first instance or to have further discussion. So things like the tobacco control strategy or kind of key health improvement priorities, it is about having that discussion and debate at a local level to enable local people to be able to be involved in that discussion and to see what their role can be, but also to provide an opportunity to discuss how that might work at a local level or what some of the barriers or issues might be. That was all I was meaning, Louise. I hope that makes sense.
I mean, it does, but I mean, I just think that it's like sometimes it gets overcomplicated, and it's just a case of just trying to keep it as because like there's loads going on. There's absolutely loads going on, and these agenda, like, so honestly, thank you to everybody who comes along to them, including, you know, the representatives from North Lanarkshire Council and the partner agencies. But perhaps it's just a personal opinion. I try and keep things really, really simple, and I think these things can get quite complex, and they're not that easy to understand or engage with. But anyway, that's, maybe I'm just rambling, I don't know.
Thanks for that, Louise, and thanks for that, Leanne. If we can move on to agenda item 5.2, which is community engagement, and we have place standard events, which I believe we've had in Hart Hill and Salisbury. I don't know about Shorts. I'm sorry if I've missed out on that. And I believe Colin's going to speak to that. Colin. Colin, you're on mute.
Colin's obviously having some connection issues. Maybe come back to Colin.
Yeah, do you want us to come back to you, Colin? Just nod your head. Right, okay, no problem. If we can move on to the Tobothi Community Garden consultation, and with Stephen Perman, who's Head of Strategic Communication for the Council. Stephen, if I can ask you to come in at this moment.
Thank you, Chair. The board has received, board members have received a report on this, and I'm just going to briefly cover the main points of that report, if that's okay. Clearly, this is an issue that has been ongoing for some time, and it's also clearly an issue that has generated a lot of local debate. So the report provides an update on the most recent engagement and the background to the proposal for a community use of the Tobothi green space. Paragraph 1 just covers the background and sets out briefly the history of this. Paragraph 2 goes into a little bit more detail, although not much, about the original draft proposal ideas, and then some I suppose the meat of the report is about the engagement that took place. The most recent engagement, as members of the board will be aware, was round about the Paul's Parcels proposal for the land. I should say at this point, in sort of covering paragraph 2.2, that I only recently took over responsibility for the community partnership team, and in doing so, I was conscious, and in thinking about the history of this, I was conscious that there was a concern within that, I suppose, history and any planned future actions, that consultation should be meaningful and should reach as many local residents as possible. And for that reason, the drop-in session that's referenced in paragraph 2.2 was supported by the community matters team at my community partnership team at my instigation, and there was a reasonable response rate to that, to both the drop-in session and the online survey, which is covered in paragraph 2.3. So there was a drop-in session there was feedback which was broadly reasonably supportive of a community garden type project, with some people looking, as you would expect, to see specific things, some people looking not to see specific things. But there was also obviously some significant concerns raised around about potential for antisocial behaviour, parking, for example, the suitability for a residential street and so on. There was also an 82 signature petition against the proposal received by the council. So against that backdrop, in the conclusions and next steps section of the report, the council's concluded that there isn't significant enough community support for the proposal as it stands to go ahead. Members of the board may be aware that the ground is surplus to the council's requirements, and the council will now move to dispose of the land in accordance with its policies, and will continue to work with Pulse Parcels to hopefully identify an alternative site that might be suitable for the delivery of their project somewhere else. So that's the bulk of the report. There is an appendix. At the last board meeting, there was a request for a timeline. That timeline is set out in Appendix 1, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks very much, Stephen. I see you've got two hands up there. I'm sorry, I never saw them going up in order. I'll maybe take John Joe and then Louise, if I can come to you afterwards, if that's okay.
Good evening, everyone. Stephen, you said that going to land disposal. The people at Tarbotha have asked me time and time again for a meeting with the council of officers to have a consultation to see what's going to happen with this land. They feel they've been denied the right to have their say. And I would like for tonight to ask you to arrange a meeting for the residents of Tarbotha, not one particular group, but for the whole area of Tarbotha, to say, so they can have their say what happens to that land. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leckie. I think the position is quite clear in terms of the land. The council has made a policy decision to dispose of that land. The land is surplus to the council's requirements. Now, that's the case for lots of land that the council has had an interest in the past. That being the case, I can't, there's a council policy in place. There's been a council policy decision about that land. Now, that disposal was suspended, paused, while we could see if there was a community use for that land, or community involvement or community interest in taking on that land. It's clear to me that that's not the case. There isn't a viable proposal for the community to take on the ownership and management of that land, or the leasing and management of that land. And against that backdrop, I can't really, unless there is a viable proposal that comes forward and comes forward very soon, that involves the community taking on the lease of the land and the ongoing maintenance of the land, that does not involve the council maintaining the land on an ongoing basis, because that is a decision of the council. The council has taken that decision. And when I say the council as a whole has taken that decision. I can't, off my own bat, decide that that's not to be the case. So it's hard to see, against that backdrop, what purpose a meeting would have, because if the purpose of the meeting is to discuss any option, which is the council continuing to maintain that land or put something into that land and continue to operate that land, that would be against council policy. The council's made a decision to dispose of that land, and as I say, it's surplus to operational requirements. So unless there's a viable community proposal, and it's clear to me that there is not a viable community proposal as things stand currently, then it's hard to see what could be achieved other than for the council now to enact its policies and dispose of the land in accordance with those policies.
Well, Stephen, the people at Tarbotha have been denied that meeting with you, and they haven't had a proper say what was going to happen to the land. That proposal came out of the blue before you turn it on with Pulse Parcel. Nobody knew what was going to happen. They had no say in what was going to be happening. So I don't see there, and I feel that the people have a right to have their meeting, to have their say what's happening with that land, because they're under the impression it belongs to them. And I think it's only right and proper that they get their say.
Well, as I say, Councillor Leckie, I can't really see. You know, the council has a policy decision. The policy decision has been made. I think it's hard to argue that the people haven't had their say on the Pulse Parcels proposal, because they very certainly, you know, that's the purpose of this report, is to report back on that. The council, just to be, and I can't really find another way to say this, the council, the land is surplus to the council's requirements. The council's policies therefore mean that when land is surplus to the council's requirements, it disposes of that land. Where possible, we try to find a community-led and managed purpose for that land. We've tried to do that in this instance. The proposal isn't viable. It's clear that there is no other viable proposal. Nobody's presented the council with another viable proposal. If there was another viable proposal, we would look at it, but there currently is not that proposal. So it's very, and in all the time that this has been discussed locally, there hasn't been another viable proposal. So we're in a very difficult position in that the land has been declared surplus to requirements by the council. And so therefore the council doesn't really have a choice. I don't have a choice in terms of the council policies, but to say to the property department that that land is now to be disposed of.
Thanks, John Joe. Thanks, Stephen. Can I bring in Louise at the moment, and then we'll have Nana and then Ray.
Oh, thank you, Kenny. Stephen, thanks. Just a quick question. Just because, sorry, about the lighting in my place actually at the moment. Just because the Paul's Parcels proposal didn't go ahead, right? Why then has it been the default position of the council to dispose of the land rather than give time for an alternate project to come forward? And I suppose another question to ask off the back of it is, bearing in mind that the consultation held at the Salvation Army was literally a couple of weeks ago, right? Then when was the decision taken to dispose of the land? Because like we've literally just had the report out saying that so the general consensus is that you've got a green bit of land, the community wants something done with it. So what that's going to be remains to be seen. And I'm just trying to kind of understand why the council have kind of just because one proposal hasn't gone ahead, they've just rebounded and defaulted to right that's fine. So let's get rid of it. And I'm just wondering who and when that decision was taken, or who took that decision and when.
Thank you. In terms of the land being declared surplus to requirements, I'll bring Leanne in on that in a second, but it was prior to, that decision had previously been taken by the council. The council, as you'll probably be aware, declares land surplus to operational requirements fairly regularly. The council has an interest in a lot of land, and so it was one of the sites that had been declared previously, and I noticed Mary's helpfully put in the chat bar March 2021. I'm not suggesting that if there was a viable proposal coming forward, we would ignore that. Mm-hmm. What I am suggesting is that up until this point, there has not been another proposal for that land that meets the criteria that would be required, which is that it's community led.
Well, what's the criteria?
So it would have to be community led. It would have to be led by a group who had the ability to take on a lease. It would have to be led by a properly constituted group. And the council, I guess, would have to be satisfied that it was a viable proposal in terms of being sustainable. That no such proposal has come forward. The Pulse Parcels one looked like it might meet those requirements, but I think the consultation is relatively clear in respect of it's not overwhelmingly supported. It's not even particularly majority report supported. I notice as well that Mary's put in the chat there that the interest in the land predates that, and I accept that, but that was not a viable proposal, as the report mentions, and it has to be viable. It would be wholly irresponsible of the council to agree a use of a piece of land where those criteria were not met for obvious reasons, because ultimately, if it's not a group that can take on a lease, it doesn't meet the conditions that the council has, which is the reason the council has declared it surplus to requirements is it can no longer maintain that land. So that's the position. I am not. I have to say, my entire aim for the best possible outcome would be that that there was a viable community proposal, and Ray's put in the comments there, and I'm happy to. I would be absolutely happy to discuss, or the team would be happy to discuss with anybody who did have a potentially viable proposal, but it would have to meet those criteria.
So what's involved in that? Because, you know, so somebody might come forward with a viable proposal in September, but you're like, oh, tough luck, we've sold it in August. So I'm just trying to get an idea of timescales, as in, like, so what do the community, you know, if given the prospect of the land being sold or the community coming together and doing something, so what timescale do the community have to work with as set by the council?
Well, I don't imagine, in fact, I know that it's not going to be the case that, you know, whatever happens tonight and whatever, you know, whenever we leave this tonight, that the land's going to be sold tomorrow. That's not going to happen. I am prepared to not tell the property department of the outcome in terms of that they should now proceed, because ultimately it was the community partnership team that kind of put a stay on that process while we went through this. I'm happy to listen to a reasonable proposal, but it has to critically it has to be a group that is able to sustain a lease. And
what does that mean? I mean, perhaps it's a discussion not for the community board, right? But if the council have set criteria, then going back to Councillor Lecky's point, maybe it would be worth having a meeting with the community to say, look, here's our criteria. If you want to come together and do something, then this is what we need. And then at least that way, if you do get a proposal forward from the community, then you know it's going to be viable because people know the rules of the game and they know what the council are looking for.
Okay. Sorry, can I come in at that point? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, Louise. I think that, you know, there has been discussions in the past going forward about this piece of land. And I think it would be appropriate to take that offline at some point and have those discussions. It's certainly been ongoing, and I think there's been backwards and forwards with, you know, interested parties and with the council as to how they go forward with it. But I think, you know, for the purposes of tonight, I think that it would be great if we could take that offline, and if there are interested parties that want to go forward with it, then absolutely fantastic. But at the moment, I'd like to bring in Nana, if that's okay, and then Ray.
Thanks very much, Kenny. I appreciate what you're saying there about taking it offline and taking it elsewhere, but I think this is the only forum that I have found, other than speaking to my neighbours, where we have a voice and we're able to say that we're not happy with what's happening with the green space. I appreciate that it has been made surplus, and it all seems to stem from that fact that it's been made surplus. And the people in the area, obviously, they're looking to keep their green space, but they're not able to maintain it. And that's why the surplus thing is so important. And when that actually came into being, March 2021, I think you said there, what is the criteria for that piece of land being made surplus? I mean, why was it made surplus? There's lots of bits of land in Shotts, much bigger than that, but that are still owned by the council. Why was that specific bit of land selected, or for whatever reason? That's what I'm trying to get at. What is the reasons? What are the criteria? What boxes do you have to tick for the bit of land to be declared surplus? And if there's a criteria for it to be filled, then I think we you know, is there a criteria then for it to be reversed? Because at the last meeting in May, I can't remember who it was, I had just seen the wee notes at the end, and somebody had put the note in saying that it's within the council's remit to reverse that decision to make a piece of land surplus. And I think with the local community being as passionate about the bit of land as it is, that's something that we would like to take forward if we can. That's something that we would like to investigate, and I would like to know what it is we would do in order to look at getting that reversed, that decision. Because see, at the end of the day, see this, the piece of land, it's not that big, but it's very important to the people in Terbothy because it is the only bit of land that is in an urban area. And the council's own website, says that they're there to enhance urban green spaces. That's the aim of the council, is to enhance urban green spaces and to provide help to community groups for community parks. It doesn't say on it that they have to maintain it, and it doesn't say, I don't know when that policy came in, that a bit of land has to be maintained by a particular group or whatever. I don't know when that policy came in and if that was before or after it was made surplus. But it just bamboozles me that all of this land all around us, and that's the bit that's selected, and it's the only bit that we've got. And the people feel very passionately about holding on to it. So can somebody answer that then? Just those two simple questions.
Thanks for that, Nana. Before Stephen comes in, I think that's really important. Obviously, the decision's been made and communicated tonight, but I think it would be great, Nana's saying that this is the best forum, obviously, for her to reach out and speak about that. So, Stephen, I don't know if you could come back about that and say what would be the best way forward for local groups to communicate their interest in the land.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in terms of the specific questions about why a particular land's made surplus, I will go and find out the answer to that question for you, and I will make sure that's communicated to you, Nana. I think what I would say is that this is not the only piece of land that the council will declare surplus over. This is a fairly routine and regular process, and it will be a combination of the service that has the management of it or it's in the services portfolio and the property service of the council. So I'll go and find out, and I'm absolutely happy to communicate that to you. What I would say is, and this will be a very little comfort to the people in this forum. The council has very significant budget challenges, as does every local authority in Scotland. It's not sustainable to maintain every single piece of land and every single service in the way that it operates currently. That's simply not sustainable. And so part of that is to reduce the council's ownership of land across North Lanarkshire. And I say that, to be very, very clear, that I appreciate absolutely that in respect of this particular piece of land, that's quite a hard thing to hear for people. So that's the situation in respect of why the council might divest itself of land in general. In terms of, and therefore, I suppose there is a choice. And the choice is, do we just go straight to sale of land as used to happen? Or do we attempt to find a community-led solution that the community want to become involved with in order to maintain that piece of land, if indeed that's what the community wants? In this case, it seems to me that the community does want to continue to use the land as a green space. But to be clear, because it's surplus to the council's operational requirements, it's not something that the council can maintain in the longer run. And so that's the background to it. In terms of the specific questions about whether or not that can be reversed and so on, well, I suppose like any decision of the council, that decision can be revisited, but it would require the council to agree that. It would require a committee of councillors to agree the revisiting of that. So is that possible? Absolutely. So that's where we are in terms of the current position. I will go back and find out. In terms of anybody who wants to have a discussion about a potential use of the land that is community led under the current criteria, assuming there's no decision to change what the council's policy decision has been in respect to that piece of land, then absolutely through Leanne and Gary would be the obvious way to approach that. We're absolutely happy to facilitate that discussion. But if the discussion is the council should continue to maintain this piece of land, that's not something that's currently within my gift, and because the council has made a policy decision.
Thanks for that, Stephen. But can you tell me then what it is the community or the Tarbothy residents would be able to do? You said it can be revisited. How do we instigate that? What is it that we need to do to ask the council to revisit it? Because that is something that I definitely want to be involved in. That I feel very passionate about it, and I want to know what it is I can do
Right.
to instigate that.
So let me. What I'm going to do, Chair, with your permission, is I will take this offline. I will go and investigate that. It would require, as I say, a motion to council from councillors that would have to be agreed by all members of a committee. But happy to discuss that offline, and that would be through, in the first instance, through Gary and Leanne, and then I'll need to go and do some work on that and to find out exactly what the position is, and also to answer your question about why it was declared surplus and how that process comes about. So I'm happy to take both of those things offline.
That would be great. Thank you very much. And will you get back to me on that somehow, or we'll come back through this?
Leanne, can you make sure we're back in touch with Anna, please?
Thanks for that, Stephen. Can I bring in Ray at this point?
Hi, thanks very much, Stephen. I want to say that it's not the only piece of land that is surplus to requirements in North Lanarkshire, but it is the only piece of land in Tarbothy, and the people do absolutely feel passionate about it, and I think that needs to be considered. Because there's a policy decision made that ground is surplus, that doesn't mean to say that the policies are correct for this area in Tarbothy. That hasn't been considered. The right decisions need to be made for the people, and the people need to have a say. And like I've said before, I just don't feel that the people have had the real opportunity to bring things forward. So what makes that policy correct? Is it correct for the council? It's certainly not correct for the residents. And this is about residents, and this is about community. I think it's really important that this gets sorted out, and just make somewhere pretty in Tarbothy. Everywhere else we look at is concrete. The concrete getting built all round about us. It's not concrete, it's windmills. We need a piece of green space, and that is good for mental health in many ways and in many areas. So when I spoke to you, Stephen, I suggested a sensory garden that would suit people living with dementia and autism. About a wee bit of looking into that and speaking to another neighbour. The suggestion is that you could plant small orchard trees and wild flowers that would encourage bees and the pollination creatures, which is equally important for the environment. So I just don't feel that the opportunities, and people in Tarbothy have got ideas, but we were kind of brushed aside because of what happened. So I think it's really, really important that this gets brought forward. People get the opportunity. If nothing comes out of it, then that's fine. We've all tried. But I think I can't get it across enough that environment, mental health, autism, dementia, loads of different areas, it would be a huge advantage. And also, how much does it cost to maintain that piece of ground, cutting the grass from April to September or whenever it is in the season? Hiring the football pitch across the road gets cut. I think it's been cut 3 times this week. The hiring the football pitch is £15, and yet it's been cut 3 times this week. So their budgets don't add up.
Thanks for that, Ray. Again, that's something it would be great, probably take offline with Leanne, and that can certainly be discussed. I've got a few hands up here, please, and Nana's still there. Nana, do you want back in, or Ray, do you want back in?
I just very briefly want to confirm that whilst they're going to taking this offline and looking at it, obviously nothing will happen with the land. It's not going to get put up for sale or anything like that. I just wanted to clarify that in concrete, make sure that that's nothing will happen.
Stephen had already mentioned that, so hopefully, that's the case. Okay, Mary, can I bring you in at this point?
Right, thanks, Kenny. I just want to clarify for people that don't know the area, because this really sounds, it has been on for quite some time, but this piece of land isn't a discrete piece of land that's tucked away somewhere that isn't going to be in anybody's way. Most of the houses surrounding this land are actually front facing. It sits in a junction joining 2 into 3 streets, and people did not want basically vegetable allotments outside their front houses. So it's just to sort of clarify that. Also regarding the consultation, people had asked for a meeting. What they actually got was a drop-in event, which they felt was fragmented, and the request for this meeting was so that everybody could hear all the same information at the same time. We know that this was a contentious issue, but then what happened was, despite it being said at the past 2 meetings, the project group would do the consultation. The council then worked in partnership with the project group. That in itself raised quite a bit of alarm within the community, because it did look as if there was bias there. The council took on the cost of that consultation. I'm not aware where that happens for any other community group. I'm certainly not aware of it happening for my own community group. Regarding my own community group, there seems to be a lot of misinformation out there about what we have actually done in the past.
Mary, can I just stop you there? I think that, you know, I've seen the emails.
Kenny, I need to, no, Kenny, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mary. I'm going to cut you off there, because I think that that's not appropriate for this public forum. I think that if you want to do that, and I've seen your emails, I think that that would be appropriate to go backwards and forwards with either Stephen and Leanne, and I think that that would be the appropriate measure to use.
Right, so you don't want people to know that we've been misrepresented then? And that the
Chair,
information...
perhaps I can help here. Chair, perhaps I can help here. I absolutely refute the suggestion that your group has been misrepresented, Mary. And I would want to make that very, very clear, and I think it should be minuted. The inference that any of the council staff have misrepresented your group is wholly untrue. At no time have council staff misrepresented your group. I've made that clear in the lengthy email correspondence that you and I have had over a number of weeks. What I would say about the consultation is this. I've already made it clear in my presentation of the report that I considered it necessary for the council to support the consultation because there was an inference that the council, that the consultation would somehow not be meaningful. I think it's pretty clear that the inference you just drew about the council in some way supporting Paul's Parcel's proposal is refuted by the very fact that this report's in front of this meeting tonight. The Paul's Parcel proposal will not proceed based solely on the consultation. So that's the factual position. But any other discussions regarding previous engagement and previous views that have been expressed, I'm happy to take offline.
Well, can I at least...
Thanks for that, Stephen. Mary, sorry. Yeah.
Can I at least respond to that?
Of course, yes.
Whatever I'm saying, it's not personal, it's not all personal to me. I'm actually saying on behalf of the people who were in the community who were involved. But if we are not, and I'm not even just talking about the report, I'm going back, there are things on YouTube that's been said at the last meeting that's not correct either. But obviously I'm going to be cut off, so...
No, thanks, Mary. I'm not really cutting you off. I think that there's a great opportunity for everybody to come together as stakeholders that have been involved with this and try and discuss it and take it forward and come.
And I'm not happy being cut off, Stephen. Kenny, I have to say, I'm not happy.
That's my job as chair, Mary, is to try and make sure that, you know, what we do is appropriate on the community board, you know, and I think that, you know...
Well, it's appropriate for the truth to be told, and I'm being cut off from saying that we've actually been misrepresented, but I've said it. So I'll now stop because you obviously don't want me to say any more.
I think that it'd just be more appropriate to deal with this offline, Mary. That's all. Thank you. If I can go back to 5.2 and the place standard. Colin, are you able to engage with us now? Are you online? Is everything okay?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Colin.
Listen, I'm really sorry about that. I've had IT issues all day, and I'm not sure what's happening, but so I apologise. But here we go. So the place standard events, and some folk here at the board meeting participated at the events, and there was 3 in Shotts, Harthill and Salisbury, and the last one being at Salisbury last week. Again, it's about engagement work done, and it was funded by Public Health Scotland in relation to a framework called Place Standards, and very much just about people looking at their area, where they stay, views, opinions, positives, negatives. There were different themes of these place standards, so like public transport, facilities and amenities, and housing and community. But anyway, that's just a kind of a brief. So what I need to do is I need to, from the information we've got from the face-to-face events and from the Participant community survey that we did, the generic community survey, I need to pull together a report which gets sent to Public Health Scotland. But one of the really great things about the engagement that's happened in the last kind of 3 weeks, and I'm going to go back to what Leanne's initial discussion in relation to the LOIPs. A lot of the feedback and the intelligence and data is actually gold dust, actually, in relation to people in local communities and how they can make a difference in their views and aspirations, and it's actually really valuable to us as a kind of a partnership. So the work that's taking place has actually been very valuable for us, not just the council, but Police Scotland, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, because there's bits and pieces within there that will be very useful for our partners and the community board. But what we're going to do is we get this report, and I will we'll put something together to Public Health Scotland, because they were the funder, and then we'll come back to the board at a later date with a report for the board. But a very useful exercise in community engagement, and one of the key strands here was we had quite a lot of comments about people really appreciated having their views heard and getting the opportunity to sit down and just chat with council officers in relation to their local community. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, I think you're right. It's really important for everyone to have their views heard. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Is there any observations or questions that you would like to give to Colin? So that's great. Thank you. If we can move on to the community concordat, and that's the Van L group. Oh, sorry. Can I go back to Louise? Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Kenny. Listen, I'm not boomeranging back, and again, we'll take it offline. But I've put the question in the chat bar. But for those that are maybe viewing online or can't see the chat bar, I just wanted to articulate my question about who at North Lanarkshire Council made the policy of land disposal. So, for example, is the policy officer led, or was it, or is it politically led? And the reason why I'm asking is that I don't recall any party's literature promoting disposal of community assets ahead of the election in May. So I'll take it offline, and it's something that we can clarify or confirm, but I'm just trying to understand how the council came to that policy decision and who's driving it. But again, that's a question that I can take offline. Thank you.
Chair, perhaps I can
like to come in there, yeah,
briefly help on that. So the council, any council policy is determined by is decided upon by elected members, and I'm conscious that some elected members in the room, and I promise I'm not passing the buck there. So it's a policy. So the council will have had a land disposal policy in various forms for probably since the council was very early in the council's history. Because it has to have a policy to dispose of land. So in terms of how that exactly operates, I suppose as with any kind of policy that is in existence, officers will make recommendations, and councillors will determine those recommendations. I've said openly at this meeting, and I'm happy to reiterate that I don't know this very specific disposal of this particular piece of land, and when that went through committee. Mary's helpfully suggested that it was in March 21, but I will go back and check that, and I will go back now. from my experience of seeing lots of committee papers, I'm not directly involved in land disposal, but from seeing lots of committee papers, usually there'd be a number of these at the appropriate committee. I need to check again which committee has that authority, but there would be a number of reports, usually fairly brief reports, that would cover, maybe be 5 or 6 pieces of land across North Lanarkshire, or sometimes more or sometimes fewer, that would go to that committee as a matter of routine for approval for disposal. So I will go back and check the specific circumstances of that specific piece of land, but in general terms, the council will have had a land disposal policy for a very long time.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Sorry, if we can move on to the community concordat, that's the Van Elve rep. I don't know, Jean, are you going to speak to that, or do we have someone else? Is Jean still with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hi, Jean. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to give you a wee update on when the next the community concordat meeting for Shorts was going to be taking place.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead and
I gave you the wee update on it at the last meeting. So the date and time of the concordat meeting, where you'll ask your views and if you're concerned about any challenges being faced by your family or your community, and the concordat event will be taking place on Monday, the 5th of September, from 12 until 3 o'clock, and it'll be taking place in the Shorts Welfare Living Centre, Kit Road, Shorts. And I can put that in the chat for anybody that wants to come along. It's just a chance for your views to be held. But I know a report's getting put together just now, but they don't have anything to produce as yet. But as soon as we get that, we'll get it to you.
That's fantastic, Jean. Thanks for that update. That's really good. The next item I have is Fertisset Youth Forum. Sorry.
Can I come in and ask Jean a question?
Sorry, Mary. Sorry.
Jean,
Mary.
Hi, Jean. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but
probably no.
See, where you're saying there's a report being done, is that based on the survey that was done?
Yes.
Right. And should that be available come that meeting?
Well, I think they're hoping to have it available come that meeting, so.
Right.
I think that's the plan.
That's great. Thank you.
I'm putting this in the chat just now about when it's taking place.
Thanks for that, Mary, and thanks, Jean. The next point is Fertisset Youth Forum, and I believe it was Sarah that was going to speak to that. Leanne, do we have Sarah on the video call?
I'm going to come in here, sorry, Leanne. Sarah unfortunately can't be here, but Kayla Gardner, who's involved in the Fertisset Youth Forum, but I got an email earlier saying that she was having technical issues, so I just want to check if Kayla is here, but I suspect she isn't. So we will just have to put that onto the agenda for the next meeting, if that's okay, Chair. But we'll maybe see if I can get some information from the forum, because it was really just a very much a kind of a, what are they up to, what are they doing, what are their kind of aims and objectives and their outcomes and their plans, because I know they've been looking at some funding opportunities. So I will speak to them, see if we can get some information and send it out to you. If that's
Thanks,
okay. Yeah.
No, I think that would be good. It would be good to have Sarah or Kayla on. I think they do some really good work, and I've seen some of the things that they've been doing on social media. So yeah, I think that, the next meeting, that would be great to have them along. If I can move on to 5.3, we have Police Scotland, and I believe it probably Alan that's going to speak to that. So welcome along again, Alan, if you want to go ahead.
Hi, Chair. Hi everyone. How are you all? Listen, I'll just kind of go through the update as I have it here. Obviously, Leanne's kind of explained to people that that we're kind of regrouping ourselves around about the local priorities and the teams locally, and hopefully in time I'll have a kind of a specific report that I can give you. I just feel it's sometimes better to chat through and actually get some of the questions or some of the local issues, because actually, as much as we talk about strategic priorities, sometimes dogfouling can be an issue, for instance, which is somebody's issue somewhere, and I'm keen that we explore and we support the community in all aspects. What I would say is, I see your local priorities there for mental health and wellbeing. It's probably important to mention that Police Scotland, actually, we're an organisation that help people. Probably 84% of our calls are to go and help people, often suffering mental health trauma. So that's the stuff that we're linking in with Lanarkshire NHS and the local authority to try and improve upon. And that's the strategic stuff that, again, that was mentioned there earlier on by Leanne. And probably another thing that you didn't know was that locally, when we attend an incident where someone is experiencing trauma, we can offer DBI, distress brief interventions, in relation to financial worries, and that's in consultation with that local partnership. And we also offer a community triage service, which means that we can offer that phone call to someone in their own home to make sure that we're not overwhelming the hospitals. So it's probably just something very simple, but we deal with day in, day out, that you maybe didn't know about. Community engagement, I'm really keen that you get in touch with our community police officers as per the link that I've put online, or myself, and I will arrange for officers to come round where we can to be part of your community engagement. It's a big part of what we do daily if you look at our Facebook pages, and I'm keen that we actually link in locally with some of the local groups, so that one, the community officers get to know you, but two, the rest of the community get to see that the police are involved in a lot of these. So under the kind of community safety, sorry, just before I move on to the actual report, the link I put on there about our local policing priorities, our local policing plans just about to be refreshed. So I've put a link on there for you to have your say in relation to the shots and villages, Ward 13 local community priorities. And I'm actually happy because this is a public meeting, it's really important that if you want to voice what you think is a priority to me, I can feed that back up through the kind of strategic network internally within Police Scotland. So drop in the bar there if any of you, if you want to say you have a particular priority that you want us to focus on, I'll go through that and just pull priorities, not names of people giving them, literally just this is what came from our meeting. And other than that, you please go into that link so that you can absolutely put down what your priorities are and where you think that some of the problems are. The local priorities as they are, so one is dishonesty. And I think I updated you at the last meeting that we continue to have thefts from HGVs at Heart Health Services. Now, this is a big problem for us. It's a big problem for the transport companies because obviously they don't bring their business to the areas if their lorries are continuing to get broken into. So we do have a joint visit planned for up there on the 26th. I think I'm looking really to put a wee bit more robust measures around about safer communities work, fence lines, CCTV where we can, and see if we can get that stopped. Obviously, things that are getting stolen from there are often being taken back into the local community. However, we are aware that there's also travelling criminals who are coming to and from some of the service stations. So we are open to that, and we're kind of conducting investigations around about both travelling criminals and the local communities and where this product that's been stolen may be going. We had a kind of a sneak-in theft scenario in Victoria Road in Hart Hill. That was just back last month, whereby we detected a male in relation to that, and he was arrested and reported, which is that would obviously give you a bit of comfort that the local community police officers are actually really keen and really quick off the mark to detect not only these types of individuals, but your bogus callers as well. So please just remain vigilant to that and make sure that your family, friends, locking doors, and where we think that someone prowling, if you phone 101 or 999 and let us know about that. There was also a vehicle stolen from West Benhar Road, a high value Audi S3. That's been recovered, and we are currently following a positive line inquiry in relation to that. I reported in relation to drugs last time round. We had conducted kind of successful Crime Stoppers campaigns, which led us to perform sheriff search warrants in the area, whereby we've recovered values where we were able to report a male in relation to drug dealing in the area. Again, I would just highlight that we are open for people using 0800 555 111, which is the Crime Stoppers number, if you want to report anything anonymously. And if not, our doors are always open. You know, I've put in the chat bar there that our community police officers are in Shotts Police Office along with response officers. So anytime you see the police vehicle there, please chat the door, and hopefully you get a response. And if you don't, pick up the phone, call 101, and we'll get somebody to come round and speak to you. Youth disorder continues to be an issue for us over the summer holidays. However, not as much as it was last year. I'm pleased to report. Shield Gardens was a kind of significant area of concern in the Shotts area, where our call demand was quite high. Now, I'm glad to report, whilst working with Stephen Llewellyn's teams in the housing estates, we were able to get a number of people moved on and more appropriately housed. And I'm actually currently kind of engaging with CCTV management, and I believe that there has been funding secured for CCTV near to Shield Gardens. Again, that's for us to kind of just continue to work along with the community, make sure that it is still appropriate to have that mounted there, and then I'll continue to link in with Graham Good, the manager there. One thing we did do up in the Shield Gardens area was bring the soccer arena up there. That was our youth kind of diversion plan, which again, I'm pleased to report seems to have worked. I had a meeting with the management team last week, and they're reporting actually quite high levels of young people coming along to that. So what I've asked them for, and it's unusual for them to do, is for them to keep the arena coming up for a further period. And again, they're currently considering that. So hopefully we get that, and we continue to be able to offer young people after the school holidays have ended and they're back at school, but we're still able to offer some form of diversion. I was made aware just today in relation to Salisbury. So we had reported last time round at Salisbury the issue of disorder. Again, working with our housing teams and North Lanarkshire Council colleagues, we were able to kind of identify particular people of concern. It appears that we have some violence disorder kind of having started down in the Salisbury area, and we'll continue to link in with the community council down there, who are heavily involved in some of the work again around about CCTV and other things that we can do in relation to the prevention of issues down there. Now, came up last time round in relation to so there is a site on Rosehall Road where we have had a number of issues in relation to local people complaining in relation to thefts of electricity, whereby we have some caravans sighted there. And again, it would be remiss of me not to mention this at this meeting. You know, we continue to support all communities within the areas that we're operating. However, what I will say is that we are currently working with North Lanarkshire Council and SEPA in relation to a number of issues that's been reported to us, and we will continue to work with them as we move forward in the coming month. And you have my commitment round about that to make sure that any criminality is acted upon swiftly. There was a particular incident, it was probably predates this meeting, but outside Moffat Butchers and Station Road in Shotts, probably a number of you would have heard about that, whereby there was a male arrested for being within the kind of curtilage of that area with intent to potentially commit theft, and there subsequently we've seen a number of assaults. I'm glad to say that male was arrested, and he was subsequently kept in custody in relation to that particular incident. And it always comes up, road safety is a priority of ours in relation to the Shotts area and surrounding villages, and it continues to be a priority. I continue to link in with our traffic inspector, and they have a road policing plan which includes the surrounding villages. Now, sorry, I've not been keeping up in my chat bar here, so probably what I'm going to do is just I'll go through it after we kind of finish. But the only other thing really to note just before the fire service come on next, we are working with the fire service. We've seen a number of fires in Allington and you know, surrounding villages whereby it's young children that have been setting fires, in particular grass fires. We continue along with our community police officers working with the fire service to make sure that our education is done in relation to fire setting, and we continue to kind of progress the reports that's been made. So we continue to to look to identify the individuals that are involved in these. And listen, I'll not harp on any more. You've heard enough from me. More than happy to open up any questions, Chair.
Thanks very much, Alan. Obviously, it's open to everyone, but I see two particular in the chat bar from Louise. Question for Alan. And it says, given the economic climate, are Police Scotland anticipating a rise in crime? If so, what kinds of crime, so people can be aware? And what additional resources will be deployed to support the Fertisset community? And then a follow-up question, I believe that's from Ray. Can you mention the Herbert Protocol? And then after that, I believe that Frank from Salisbury would like to come in as well.
Hi. Listen, I can't sit here and tell you that given the economic issues that we all face, and by the way, we all face it around this group, that you're going to see any rise in crime. I haven't seen any rise in crime as a result of that directly, and I certainly haven't been informed of that. What I would say is I am keen to be involved in any discussions, any meetings locally in relation to anything that may affect people's well-being to make sure that we can actually offer solutions along with the council and various other third sector partners to make sure that it doesn't get to that. What I would say again, Crime Stoppers is there. If there is any sort of suggestion that we are going to see a rise in kind of disorder, or people taking to the streets because of how they feel the economic climate's going, we will continue to conduct our own online searches to make sure that we're fully on top of that. So again, that we can give the support to allow people the opportunity of free speech, and we will put the kind of network round about that's required as and when required. Just remind me. So there was the kind of additional resources.
Sorry, Alan. The question from Ray after that was, can you mention the Herbert Protocol?
So the Herbert Protocol is a protocol generally around about people with dementia, and it is about that responsible person that is responsible for that person, or that person would like them to be responsible, just to have all details. It's a bit like what we do in care settings, where if a child goes missing, for instance, we get all the details that we possibly can. It's all written down in the one place. We have photographs, and we have absolutely everything that we require to conduct a very quick investigation, because as you will be aware, someone who has dementia and goes out during the night, for instance, that's an urgent priority for us. So that really is what in essence what the Herbert Protocol's about. It's not to replace any existing safeguarding messages around about that person. It's literally to ensure that we have a point of contact and we can conduct a thorough and robust investigation whilst linking in with all of the support services that particular person may have.
Just really to raise awareness and see people on who can share it with all the groups. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll go on, and we have the information on that on our webpage. I'll go on after this and I'll drop it onto the chat bar. But again, Councillor, I think it's probably important to say, in Shotts and surrounding villages, so Ward 13, we have 2 community police officers, and I've raised this before because we've been asked. It's not a lot of community police officers for you to have in such a big rural area. However, again, just to give you some reassurance, we did have one of the community police officers as the Shotts prison liaison officer. So I now have a specific officer that does that. So you have dedicated community police officers, and I can assure you, it's John Evans and Kirsty Hannigan as your dedicated community police officers. When there is anything reported to us in relation to these areas, our community policing team in Wishaw support the Shotts team, and we can again take a bit of a robust approach around about any particular issues that's reported. But it's also important to know that you have response policing operating still out of Shotts Police Office, so you have 24/7 response policing from Shotts Police Office should there be any incidents within the Ward 13 area.
Thanks for that, Alan. And again, you know, the councillors were really appreciative of that point that we had made through the residents. You know, that there was somebody dedicated to the prison, and now you have that. So that's absolutely fantastic. If I can bring Frank in next, Frank. Frank, are you still with us, or?
Sorry, Kerry, I forgot to unmute.
Go ahead, Frank. No, you're okay.
I was just to say thanks very much to Alan Mulholland and his officers for the really fast response to the incidents at Salisbury, but also to Stephen and Alison at the housing, who are always there when you need them. They work with the highest level of integrity, and I couldn't ask for any better support for the area for these guys. They're absolutely brilliant. And with their support and their input into situations such as antisocial behaviour, etc., it really, it's a game changer for us, that we know that if we send an email to these guys and let them know what's happening, they're right there on top of things. So thanks for that, Stephen. And again, if you pass my thanks on to Alison. Thanks as well to Colin and Gary for their ongoing support. I know that we're pushing at the moment for the CCTV is a huge deterrent factor, that it will be. So we're looking forward to getting that in. But it was just to say thanks.
Thanks very much for that, Frank. I think that's really important. You know, I think if we can get the CCTV in there, that would be absolutely fantastic. And as you know, that's ongoing, and you know, certainly the councillors have been working on that. I think that maybe Stephen wants to come in, and then after that, if I can bring John in as well.
Thanks, Chair. It was really just to give that quick update. I was going to give it later on in terms of my update, just to let Frank know that the CCTV knows it's been approved. The assessment's been done. It's just the power actually that's slightly delaying it just now. We need to make sure power, but that's been dealt with by our colleagues in roads, and we anticipate the cameras there and everything else, but we need to get the power, and we anticipate, but that's a real success in terms of Frank, the group, the work that Alison Clark is, who he's referenced. Alison's the housing manager, although Salisbury sits in the Fortysat ward for this. Salisbury for housing actually sits in the Airdrie housing locality, and Alison Clark's the housing manager there. So Frank and the team have worked really, really closely with Alison and continue to do that. We walkabouts and everything else. So it's just to give that reassurance. The camera, the funding, everything's there, and we're anticipating that will be up sooner rather than later. And again, to Alan and the team as well. I know there was incidents at the weekend that Frank was referencing as well, and again, that were dealt with really, really quickly. So the camera will be up as soon as we can get it up.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Yeah, I've had response from the CCTV team, and I think that's fantastic. You know, that the community council that Frank's the chair of, you know, and working with NLC, it's great partnership working, and I think that shows how, you know, not just that, but the community board can work together and come to some sort of fruition. And I'm looking forward to seeing the CCTV coming up as well. Joe, if I can bring you in just now.
Hello, Alan. I've had a lot of complaints this past 2-3 weeks. Fly tipping seems to be escalating. And when they phone the police and that, they tell me to phone the council, and the council say phone the police. What's getting done about the likes of fly tipping and that, Alan? What can you do to try and appease it, sort of thing?
Councillor, yeah, actually, we put some stuff online just very recently about the fly tip, and yeah, it's an issue that we can deal with, and it's an issue that the environmental teams can deal with at the council. So, and generally we work together, and generally we have often we have a local community coming together. So, for instance, you actually the Shotts community not that long ago held a community clean-up, and what we did is we sent a police officer up to go through some of the rubbish. And what we would do is try and find information about who might have dumped that. We would then link in with their environmental services team, and you know, Stephen and other council colleagues will have more information on them. However, they actually conduct a really good service themselves, where they've got information about tipping complaints, and they often put not only some sort of investigative protocols run about it, but they actually organise the cleanups as well where appropriate. So no, we will just continue to work with that team, and we'll continue to work with the local community. If anyone online or anyone knows of any particular place where we're having particular problems, then that's something that my local community police officers can set up an action plan for, and we would be more than happy to be involved in that. So again, it's just about reporting, councillor, making sure that people are coming on to 101 and reporting it. What I would say is, and my message to anybody coming on to the police to say when somebody's fly tipping, that it's not a matter for the police. That's for me to deal with at this end. So when I see that coming onto our system, it's for me to then look at other partners and agencies that can help us. However, we should be responding to that either by way of a diary appointment or an email to our community policing teams to let them know about it. So please, sometimes our contact centre staff, bearing in mind, you know, we have got quite a throughput. So sometimes it's just getting the information right and making sure that we are getting the information back to us. So please explain to them not to take no as an answer, that you've had a discussion with myself on your community board meeting and you would like the community police officers to be made aware of it. And I suppose that's a good way to move forward. But please have it reported to us, and we will link in with the partners where we're required to make sure that it stops, or at least we get some sort of community clean-up sorted.
The reason I was saying that, one was for Salisbury, and the gentleman taking the van number, the license plate number, the registration, I should say, the type of van, put it to yourselves, put it to the council, and they never got any feedback or any callback from any of the two agencies.
Again, councillor,
and we're trying to promote to them, to the public, to report things to the police, to the anti-social behaviour or whatever it is, the pollution team, and still they're not getting any response from anybody, and they feel deflated through that.
Listen, just very quickly on that, I see Stephen's got his hand up there. He'll no doubt have a good council response in relation to that. However, from our point of view, often our feedback is that people don't get feedback, and actually councillors' feedback to us is sometimes you don't get feedback, and I understand how difficult that can be. Please be assured that we've got an intelligence system that we input a whole lot of things onto, and sometimes feedback just isn't possible because it's now intelligence and we're trying to develop that intelligence. So please be assured if you've given us the information, it will sit in our system somewhere and someone will either have looked at it and discounted it, or we will be continuing to look at it. And that's kind of my usual response in relation to the feedback. But again, if you haven't had feedback, please come back to myself and I'll make sure you get it.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Alan. I'm quite conscious. I see Stephen's got his hand up there. I think that, you know, the community board and community have got a real input in this, and certainly councillors have got an input as well. I've certainly been involved, and I'm not going to say the area because I don't want to give away the area. But, you know, residents have spoken to councillors before, and we've managed to put CCTV, and there will be more CCTV get into areas, you know, where there has been fly tipping, and hopefully we can start to, you know, fight against which is a scourge on quite a rural area. Stephen, if I can bring you in.
Thanks, councillor. I was probably going to say the area, but I'll not say it now because there are a number of areas where we get mobile cameras in now. So within the council, sitting under the head of protective service, which is Andrew McPherson, we have got environmental protection officers, and they are out and about. And if you report, you will get something back. If you're not, we need to know about it. But again, it's about where you report it to make sure it's the right place. And that sometimes can be difficult with an organisation our size, but there is environmental protection officers that are out. There's loads of different areas in terms of some of the roads across the whole of Fortysat we're aware of. There's laybys, and there has been fly tipping over a number of years, and we have worked really closely with a number of community groups. It was going to be, again, one of the things I was going to feedback later on as well, but the council do have mobile cameras, and they can be put in, and they are being put in. The other issue at times is people are doing fly tipping. It's the landowner's responsibility once the stuff's been tipped. So it could be private property and the private landlord is actually responsible for moving it. which is a real difficulty. At times everybody thinks it's the council's responsibility. It's not. It depends where if it's on council ground, the council will be responsible and we will move it. If it's on private ground, which can happen, it can be farmers' ground, can be down wee back roads, particularly in the kind of area, the rural area we've got up in Fortysat. But just to give the reassurance, there are environmental protection officers that they are aware of certain sites and they are putting mobile cameras, and we'll continue to do that and deploy that in different sites. But we need the reports to come in.
Thanks for that, Stephen. I think that's really important. It's important for people, whether they want to contact councillors or whatever, we can get it uplifted. They can contact the council directly. But if it's constant, and I know what John Joe's saying, we've had representation recently, just this week, about the amount of fly tipping in a certain area. And I don't want to mention it because I really would like it if we could get CCTV in there to capture the people that are doing this commercial fly tipping, which could be kitchens, whatever. It's absolutely unbelievable the amount of stuff that's being fly tipped. So I take John Joe's point, but I think that we all need to work together towards that. And if residents, want to contact us, then that's absolutely fine. If I can move on, I've got the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service next, and welcome to Phil McDonald. I don't think we've had Phil before, so I think Phil's gonna speak to this agenda item. Welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Kenneth. I've got myself and my colleague Martin Burns on, Martin's an officer in the station. So it was just to introduce myself to the group. I'm the new station commander for Shorts Fire Station. I've only been on the role for 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, so I'm just in the process of doing a handover in between annual leave and whatever. I did send a report in, Kenneth. I don't know if you received it or not.
Yes, thanks. Did Phil? Did everyone else get a hold of that report?
The report was circulated.
Great, thanks, Leanne. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody wants to make comment on the report, or they want me to make any comments, specific comments, and some of the challenges that we're facing, some of the initiatives that we're going to be running over the next year anyway, over the next kind of in the near future and towards the end of the year. I just noted Alan there talking about the deliberate fire setting, and absolutely we welcome the opportunity to work with our community action teams within the Shorts area to identify, the trends, identify who we think through intelligence who is causing the deliberate fire setting, and then work with community partners, i.e. the schools and whatever, from an education purpose, from an education point of view, to try and re-educate the kids, and where there is criminality, to work with the police through we suspect there's willful fire raising to get a prosecution. I will go through my report with your permission, Chair. And Martin, if you want to step in as one of the officers for the station, please feel free. So this is a report I've submitted to the forum, and what we've used is we've just used, if you could just move down, please, Leanne, that'd be great. Just some statistical input around the incidents. Thanks very much. So over the last quarter four in 2021-2022, we increased to 50 incidents and 36 in a like-for-like figure in quarter four. So SFRS personnel, in conjunction with partners, have said we'll continue to work collaboratively to address this upturning activity. So since the previous meeting, SFRS on-call crews, and it is an on-call station from Shorts, have recorded 24 engagement activities within the area. And that's through 17 home fire safety visits, engagement and liaison with other agencies, and fire safety talks. And I would very much encourage you to engage with within the community to encourage home fire safety visits. Both the on-call personnel within Shorts Fire Station and the community action team are only too happy to come out and conduct those visits, those home safety visits. And for anybody that doesn't know, it's basically an audit of your property. We identify if there's any safety critical issues, and where we identify that there may be issues, whether it be through illness, whether it be through people we think require education, then we have got our referral pathways through our partners and our third sector partners within the communities. So planned events, we produce a summer thematic action plan. So there will be engagement activities again throughout the remainder of the summer within the local community, with community groups, with schools, with youth groups, etc., etc. And that will be focused on fire-related antisocial behaviour, outdoor fires involving grass and heather and heathland, of which, you know, it's only been on the news around the UK. Within the local area, we've seen a marked increase in those type of incidents. Incidents within the forested areas, fires involving refuse and rubbish, and again, water safety awareness. So we're working with Scottish Government, Police Scotland and Scottish Ambulance Service to reduce the incidents of water, or water-related incidents that we mobilise to. Certainly I know within my own area, I work within the kind of west of Glasgow. We've seen a marked increase in water-related areas in water-related incidents when I've been on call, but that's reflected across the whole of the brigade. So in terms of response from shots, we have created a new wildfire response unit, and that was basically created off the back of the number of incidents that we were experiencing, and the resources that was attracting to that incident, you know, both for short duration and long duration, because you can imagine if we're going to these incidents, we're attending incidents over, you know, from a couple of hours to over a day to over a week. So during Q1 and Q2, the last 5 years, the Lanarkshire station areas have encountered 327 grass, wood, heath and moorland fires, and most of which presented a particular challenge in terms of geographical location, climate change, working terrain and extinguishing media, water resources and tactical capabilities. So these incident types also tend to be extremely demanding in terms of service resource allocation, often in rural, semi-rural areas, and there's limited options for strategic cover. Both physical and arduous for attending personnel, and they're deeply damaging to the landscape, the rural environment and the wildfire, and the local communities, if you can imagine the smoke plumes that these fires produce. They're economically damaging and disruptive to the communities, as I've said, and they're tactically challenging. The single most challenging aspects of our incidents of this type have been the ability to provide appropriate and effective extinguishing media to distant fire fronts, with lay flat delivery hose the only real option, and that's for laypersons. The red hoses you see he's using within, for instance, if you see a hose and we're connecting into a fire hydrant, the back of a fire appliance, the only real option in quantity being unworkable due to terrain and pressure loss from the base pump. I'm not going to get into the technical aspects of it. So basically, we have an additional appliance within shots that's now available to the communities that carries additional hose, which makes the job of our firefighters a hell of a lot easier. It's now live, and it's now been used on 5 occasions within the last couple of months, and it'll be operationally available up until October 2022, or where if we deem that we extend it, then it will be deemed we will keep it operationally available until such times, and then we'll probably bring it back online next year again around about March, April time, when we start to see a spike in our incidents. And that's it, Kenneth. Thanks very much. And if anybody's got any questions, I'm more than delighted to answer them.
Thanks, Phil. That was a great comprehensive report. You know, I was really interested in the wildfires because obviously councillors had been contacted about some of the wildfires that had come up against houses and their back gardens, and had actually nearly wiped out, you know, their back fences and gardens as well. So that was really interesting. Hopefully going forward, you know, the facilities that you've put in there and the resources will be able to help that. And that was great. Leanne, can I bring you in?
Chair, it was just to say that I'm conscious of time and potentially struggling to get through everything on the agenda for you tonight. It was just to say that the next few items on the agenda, there's a few of them that we could probably circulate information if it would be more suitable. Obviously, moving forward, the agenda around the local outcome improvement plan priorities will be a bit more refined because we will have the performance framework in place, and we'll be able to pull reports from that. But I'm just conscious that the updates around driving digital locally under digital inclusion and the environment priority, as well as the update that I was going to give on the performance framework, can easily be circulated rather than us having to give a detailed update. And that leaves the only priority that we need to focus on is around we need to give an update on is around the town and community hubs. And it was just to mention that just before you move on to questions under that item, just to give that, if that's an option you want to take forward.
Thanks for that, Leanne. I think if everyone's in agreement with that, I think that, you know, we like on the Shorts Community Board to give everyone a chance to speak and to have lots of time. And I'm aware of the time, it's 20 to 9. So if everyone's in agreement, you know, it would be great to go onto the town and community hubs and town vision to get some feedback, and that would be good from Leanne. Would that be okay with everyone? I'll take that as a yes. So Leanne, if you want to move on to that.
Yeah, so the update that we've got in relation to the Town and Community Hub subgroup, I know there was some questions at the last meeting about how that will be taken forward, and it was obviously logged on the minute that we would provide an update. We don't have anyone here from the growth team tonight specifically. The main reason for that is that, as we're all aware, the Town and Community Hub work is being taken forward, and particularly the Town Vision work in stages, and the work around Shorts and to engage with the community of Shorts any further around the specifics of that is a bit further down the line. So at this point in time, there is an intention to create and to work with subgroups of the community boards around those kind of visions when work is starting to progress. But given that we're quite far away from anything progressing in Shorts at this point in time, there will absolutely be work in the future, but there will not be a meeting of the Town and Community Hub subgroup in the short term, purely because there's not really anything to discuss or progress at this point, and therefore the growth team are not prioritising this particular area due to the timescales for the overall programme. So that's the only update that we've really got at this point in time, and it was on the agenda purely because we were asked for an update specifically.
Does everyone have a question? Andy, have a question? Sorry for that. Hi, Louise. Do you want to ask a question there?
Well, it's not a question, it's just to kind of back up what Leanne has just said. So for those that are not already aware, I run the planning applications and Shorts Facebook page, and I put on a wee update, I think it was like earlier in the month, about kind of effectively the town hub and the town vision, and the answer came back as follows. Hi Louise, thanks for your email. As previously advised, the Shorts Town Hub is not in scope in the current 5-year plan, and as such, consultation and engagement around this will commence at a later date, which is still to be determined when the project is planned into the programme. So I suppose, so there's a definitive update that there's not an update, but given the fact that it's not going to be in the scope of the next 5 years project, I'm just wondering what value we've got in keeping it as an agenda item in the immediate term, but then again, maybe if there's a subgroup meeting, then at least when, in 5 years, when people or when the council do get to Shorts on their list, then at least we've maybe got some plans for them. I don't know.
Thanks, Leanne. Thanks for that question, Louise. If you want to respond, Leanne.
Yeah, I suppose my only response, Louise, would be that while it's still a priority under the local outcome improvement plan, and those plans are clearly published with that priority on there, I think you're right. There probably isn't as much benefit in as having it on as a standing agenda item in the short term. That's not to say it couldn't be put on the agenda as and when there are updates or when there are things that may need to be discussed with the community board. But I think you're right. I think also just to make that point that all of the like priorities won't be on every agenda for every community board meeting. What will happen is, and this was I suppose just to briefly explain, there is a performance kind of framework that's been developed for the delivery of the likes and for the reporting to the community community boards and to the North Lanarkshire Partnership Strategic Leadership Board. And what we'll do is we'll pick out kind of key highlights and bring specific updates as they arise. And communities can obviously, the community representatives on the community board are obviously will be part of that process and highlighting the things that they would like to discuss specifically. On this particular occasion, the agenda is quite heavy, just because we're in that transition period into using, you know, I think as Alan said in his police update, we're in that transition period into using the kind of more formal reporting mechanisms. So yeah, I think what you're saying is probably sensible, in that it will remain a light priority, and it's absolutely published as a light priority for the Shotts area, but it doesn't make sense for it to be on the agenda for every meeting when there's not an update to be given.
Thanks for that, Leanne. And given what Leanne said earlier, you know, I'd like to move on to community matters and agenda item 6, and that's access to football pitches and pavilions. And again, that's Heather. Heather, if you'd like to come in at this point.
Okay, is there a specific question that anyone has for me? I have been aware that I've been getting some emails which hopefully I've responded to, but is there a question? Councillor Leckie.
Hello there. I've been, must be 2 or 3 people with the Concordat Academy. They've over 300 kids.
Yep.
And they're still having to go out with Shotts to get a game at football. This is adding more expense to them, which the parents can't really afford. Now, to ask for a pitch and they get told they can't play in the pitch because the grass has not been lifted off it, or it's not been cut, or you can't use the pavilion with no cleaners. I think that is totally and utterly astounding in this day and age, that the council can't maintain and look after their pavilions to a reasonable standard that the young football teams cannot use.
Okay, so I did respond to that. I think I got the same query from 4 different people actually in the end, and I did respond to that. So I'm not sure about what you're saying about it's not being cut. Usually with grass pitches, they aren't cut until a booking is made. It's not my own team that cut them, but that would be the situation. In terms of the pavilion, we are still in a situation on the back of COVID that the pavilions have to be cleaned after every use. And, you know, like lots of services in the council, I don't have staff to cover all of that. However, we did offer a solution for that football team, which was that we would be able to work with them so that even if they were willing to do their own cleaning, they could get access to the pavilion. We are in a position at the moment where we're trying to get the pavilions reopened as much as possible, but it's really just a health and safety matter. But as I said, I did actually respond to that particular one from that football team 4 times actually. I responded last week, but the solution is there.
It still doesn't generate a great feeling amongst the football fraternity around about if they can't hire a ground. To say you don't cut it until they're playable, if you cut it, therefore you've still got to lift all the grass off it. If you maintain it on a regular basis, you wouldn't need to come lift the grass. It could be played on there and then.
As soon as a booking is made, though, my team would contact the environmental assets team and they would go in and make sure that all was put in place so that the team is ready for them when they come in. It's just a situation that we have with grass pitches. You'll appreciate we've got about 430 pitches across North Lanarkshire and about half of them are grass. So it's really just, we don't cut them until there's been a booking made. And as I said, but as soon as the booking is made, we can get that put in place for the teams. Sorry, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
To hire out one of the 3G pitches or 4Gs or whatever it is, it's £50 a 30 a park. So if you want a full park, what is that, £100? Teams don't have that kind of money. Surely you should maintain the grass to a better standard, and then you wouldn't have all this hassle.
Okay, I can take your point on board, and I'm happy to feed that back, Councillor.
Thanks for that, Heather. I think that's really important, you know, in our area. You know, there's always been a great sort of love for football and lots of football teams. And I think that, you know, and we've all been in contact with you about, you know, how they would like to access all the football pitches and the pavilions, etc. And I think that's something that we can certainly take forward from this meeting. It's unfortunate, I see from Leanne, that Stephen has had to leave the meeting for a previous appointment, and that's a shame because Shotts Bonaccord, as John Joe mentioned earlier, are doing such fantastic work. You know, they have over 300, you know, kids there playing football. They're doing some fantastic things. They've got a girls team now, and it really is a fantastic story, you know, for Shotts and the surrounding area, really for Tissot. So maybe we can bring Stephen back in at some point, or even Andy or Denise, to talk about that, because I think they're doing really well, including, you know, the £7,000 or £7,500 that they managed to pull down from lottery funding, which will be fantastic for the Girls Academy as they go forward. But if I can move on to agenda item 7, and that's Recovery NL, and if I can bring in Gary at this point.
Hi everybody, it's just a quick reminder that the North Lanarkshire Recovery NL Environmental Fund still remains live. So far we've only had one application from the Tissot area, so there's plenty of time and opportunity for any groups who may be interested to submit an application to do some environmental improvement project to do so. Colin, myself will be very happy to resend information if you feel that would be useful, and we'd also be very happy to speak to anyone who might need some assistance or any additional information going forward.
Thanks for that, Gary. I know that Tissot Ward did particularly well, you know, with their applications to the Environmental Fund previously, which was great, you know, and I think that we'll start to see some really good things going forward from the groups that applied. So thank you for that update. If we can move on to agenda item 8, which is standing agenda items, and it's the community coordinator update, and that's Stephen. If you'd like to give us.
Thanks very much, Chair. It's just a shame, isn't it, that Stephen White had to go. I think that's something we would, as a community board, we would desperately want to hear. Any group that's get 300 kids coming through, and I'll reach out to Stephen as well to see, in terms of my role as community coordinator. As you'll see on its community coordinator, it used to be community champion. The title has changed again. I think a couple of people have asked again, well, what is the role? The role of the community coordinators across each of the community boards is pretty much just to try and facilitate access to a variety of officers across the council, and also partners to work in partnership, not just for the council, but across all the partners for the benefit of the wider community, really. And it's always a difficult one, because we also have day jobs in terms of the head of housing. So each of the heads of service have also got this on as well. Every one of us is committed in terms of what we want to do. I think the Shotts Bonaccord story is an unbelievable story when you think about it, and it really would warrant a lot of time at the next board if the board were up for that. We really want to desperately hear what Stephen is actually doing, because it makes some difference to the community. I've mentioned earlier, again, I appreciate the time, I'm not going to go on too much in terms of our overall time, and I mentioned earlier the works in Salisbury with Frank and that group, hugely successful. We've also been working with groups in Allington as well, and tenants and residents, in terms of a variety of things that are going on down there, from parking, fly tipping, and some antisocial, and working closely with Alan and his team. We've also been working closely with John Duffy up at Morley Way, and we've recently secured some funding there for the community garden up there for new decking and plants and shrubs and stuff like that, John. So there's already decking there. I think it was done 15 years ago or something like that, John. So it needs renewed. So we've been working closely with John and the tenants up there. See John with his thumbs up, and we're anticipating that project will start very, very shortly. Unfortunately, it'll be probably done for the winter, John, but at least it'll be done for next summer for the weather coming back out. So again, hugely successful working with groups. We had a really big successful project with Paul's Parcels, and this was in terms of they ran a fridge day, as they called it. I had to ask one of my officers what a fridge day was, but basically it's in terms of food poverty, and it was getting people in. It was a bit silly myself having to ask what a fridge day was, but it was ultimately about food poverty. We had officers on site. We spoke earlier about what's happening in the world just now. Income maximisation is massive for everybody just now. And I'm putting a plea out here for everybody that's on here. It's absolutely key and crucial across your community. We have got income maximisers across the council. Last year we put on £30 million across the whole council. There are loads and there's billions of pounds in unclaimed benefits out there. And it's key with food and also fuel poverty that people engage with us. So we're working closely with Paul's Parcels in terms of the food parcels, but we're also working when they're having surgeries in different places that I'll have officers available. And I think that's a key message to get out. This is about making sure people have got every entitlement to every benefit that they should have. And the officers are there. It's a big resource, but again, it's just a plea there, Chair, that actually we get a message out that we will send people out to houses. It's not a problem. They can come into the offices up at the Shots First Stop shop. But we will visit them in their homes and make sure they're getting every single entitlement to what they should be getting, and it will help. It's not going to completely sort out in terms of obviously poverty that's out there, but trust me, it does help. So the work that we're doing with Paul's Parcels in terms of the food poverty and maximising people's incomes is hugely successful just now. So that's just a very, very quick tour. We have worked really closely with Alan and the community police team. It was mentioned earlier about clean-up days. Again, from a council perspective and a housing perspective, we have paid for skips across the whole of the Fortissat ward at different times, and we will continue to do that. If any of the groups that are on here are looking to do a community clean-up, then again, if you contact me, we will make sure I'll make resources available in terms of housing personnel, estate officers, and also skips. But I'm happy if people feed that back to me, and we'll certainly organise it. And that's about it for now, Chair.
Thanks, Stephen. That's a really good update. I think that, you know, the Salisbury Community Council have been spoken to me about that. I think they think the skips would be a great idea to come forward, and I think that's fantastic. And I think some of the things you've spoken about there, you know, the financial inclusion team from the council have done wonderful work, and the amount of money that they've brought to people and residents within NLC is absolutely fantastic. So congratulations on that. If I can move on to agenda item 8.2, the LDP, and Leanne, is that you that's going to speak to that?
It is, Chair, thank you. I'll be very brief on this one. The Local Development Programme report was circulated with the papers, and the main body of the report is the standard report that comes to all community board meetings, so I won't go through that in any great detail, but just for anybody new to the board, the Local Development Programme is a capital programme that can only be used for capital projects on council land. The funding can cover a range of projects with park and play provision, heritage features, etc. And communities we always encourage communities to identify projects through the completion of a proposal form. This enables us to gather that basic information to ensure that projects meet that criteria and can be funded before we progress to any more detailed feasibility, engagement or development work. It is a 5-year programme and we're currently in year 2. We are not seeking any specific approval tonight for any particular projects that have been added, but as always, we would just encourage local groups to engage with any project ideas that they have or anything that you think might merit consideration within the criteria, and we can advise and support. So always come to us in the kind of first instance, and we can advise if a project kind of meets the eligibility criteria, and we can work with you to look at, you know, if and when it's appropriate to develop that proposal forum. But the proposal forum is really crucial in enabling us to take anything forward. That's all. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.
Hi there. Are there any questions for Leanne? Yeah. John, can you?
Hi, Leanne. Can you give us an update on Swing Park at Curryside Avenue? Because this is now 3 years past and there's nothing been done. And it's an eyesore. It's overgrown. And people have been coming to my door, chatting my door, why it's taking so long for get this reinstated and up and running. And also up at Ballock Road, I'm sure Kenny knows about this. A lot of antisocial round about the swing park up there. Young kids getting flung out so other older ones can come in and play football. which causes mayhem all around about the scheme. Thank you.
And certainly, Councillor, in terms of your first inquiry about Curryside, I believe that a response was sent to yourself and outlining what the position was. Obviously, the work had commenced in that in 2020 prior to lockdown, and works were halted due to the national restrictions, which meant that the project then was delayed. But then when the works were allowed to recommence, it was determined that the best option was to tender it to an external contractor to allow for a full site refurbishment, so to do a bit more work than was originally anticipated. And then there was just a few kind of delays around the national procurement framework, and the fact that we were unable to issue a contract as early as we maybe have liked to. As far as I'm aware, the work has now been tendered. I don't know, Gary, if you've got an update on where we're at with that, but as far as I'm aware, the tender was issued. In fact, I've just got information here, just found the latest update. We had a return date early September. At that point, the contract will be issued, and from then on, the work will commence. We can't give an exact timescale for that because obviously it depends on the kind of tenders coming in and being assessed, and the you know the kind of the processes that are involved with that. But certainly it is moving forward. I know it's not as quick as people maybe would have liked, but the delays, you know, have been legitimate, and there's not really a lot that we could have done to make that project proceed any quicker than it has done. But what we can guarantee you that the work will be commencing as soon as the tender exercise is completed. But I don't know, Gary, is there anything else to add to that? Is that where we're at? Is there anything that I've missed?
That's all I have as well, Leanne.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. In terms of the other project, Councillor, can you clarify what project that was again? Sorry, I missed the
The Balloch Road, there've been a lot of antisocial behaviour up there, Leanne. Kids were playing in the swing park, and the older kids were coming in, turfing the young kids out, playing football, and the balls were going out, hitting off people's windows, cars, and whatever, you know. There were supposed to be getting measures put in place to combat that. But really, a swing park, they shouldn't be playing football at all in it. And I was in discussion with Colin about trying to get a Muga up round about Cove Crescent, just round the corner. And Colin is Chris Smart, was it? You spoke to?
I think Colin's had some connection issues, Councillor. But just in terms of the one at Balloch Road, I know the one that you're talking about, and I do remember the emails coming in and the responses being sent. If you, I know that there was a bit of discussion between ourselves, other services, and with our colleagues in police as well, to look into what could be done, if anything. So if you could just maybe leave that with me and let me go and look into where we got to with that, I'll come back to you with a further response. And in terms of the ideas around the Mugga, the team will continue to engage with you around that. Is that okay? And we'll try to progress things and look at doing a bit early kind of discussion and maybe feasibility work between now and the next meeting. But we'll engage directly with you and make sure we're making contact with the local residents. Is that okay?
Fine, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor.
Thanks for that, Leanne. I think, you know, round about Balloch Road, the Mossband Lane, I think that, you know, the council have a plan to put in, you know, a ball fence there to stop all the sort of balls going over and hitting not just front doors, but cars, and causing extensive damage as well. So I think that would be good if we could, you know, progress that. I think that's been agreed with other council officers. So I think that would be fantastic if we could make that happen in the near future. So thanks for that. If I can move on to agenda item 9, any other competent business. One you would see there is chairperson for the community board. So, you know, I've spoken about this before. It would be absolutely fantastic if we had people from the community, residents that would come on and be the chairperson. We haven't had that, I believe, interest so far. But maybe, Leanne, if I could pass that over to you. And, you know, I think it would be great if, rather than a councillor, we had somebody from the community that would be willing to take the chair position.
Yeah, councillor, we'll continue to engage with within our local networks and try to encourage. And I suppose what we would just want to emphasise is that if somebody was prepared to take on the role, they would be very well supported. You know, they wouldn't be left on their own. Gary and Colin and the team would provide a lot of support to any individual that was prepared to take on this very important role. So they absolutely wouldn't be on their own with this.
Thanks for that, Leanne. I think that's important. You know, somebody who maybe thinks they might want to do it, but you know they're a bit nervous about it or whatever. I think that they would have support from NLC and the community engagement team as well. So please have a think about that. If I can move on, agenda. Oh, sorry, John. John, can I bring you in there? Sorry, John, missed you.
All right, Kenneth. Just to say, Councillor Eckie and I have already sent in a written proposal, and I don't know what's happened to it.
Hi, John. Who did you send that to, the proposal?
I sent it to the community team, must be 6 weeks ago at least.
Okay, can I just I see Gary's got his hand up there. Can I bring Gary in?
Yeah, yes, no problem, Chair. John, that's right. You did submit a proposal, and that was seconded by Councillor Leckie. Unfortunately, the proposee was unable to consider that proposal going forward at this time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, right.
Mary, if you want to come in at this time.
John, that's very kind, but I've got no intentions of chairing the community board.
Well, I think
You for your confidence in me and Councillor Leckie.
Yeah. Okay, right. Thank you. Right.
Thanks everyone for that, and I think that, you know, it would be great if we could have someone to come forward from the community. I think that would be better to chair the community board. But please have a think about that, and if you think that you would be interested, then please contact anyone on the community engagement team. And if I can just move on to agenda item 10, and that's date and time of next meeting. I don't know who's going to address that. Leanne, possibly you again.
I'll come in, Councillor.
Thanks, Gary.
So the date of the next meeting is Tuesday, the 22nd of November. As you may know from our previous updates, we are currently testing different approaches to go hybrid. The testing still remains ongoing, and we haven't reached a final conclusion on the use of the technology at this point in time. But once we have an update on the use of the technology allowing hybrid activity to go forward, we'd certainly be happy to consider that.
Thanks, Gary. That's fantastic. I think that, you know, I've always favoured face-to-face meetings, but I know that, you know, we're now in the era of, you know, hybrid meetings where people can't make it. So, you know, and they have the opportunity to dial in and video in. So, but that would be, I think, a hybrid meeting for me. I don't know what other people think. I think that would be a really good idea, but that would be fantastic. So, listen, everyone, thanks for that. Thanks for your attendance and your contribution tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic. Sorry, Louise, sorry, I just bring you in there.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say, and like, I do need to go in a minute, but if the technology isn't up and running to do the hybrid, could we like do the default of having in person rather than online in November, please?
I'm happy to come in there, if that's okay.
Yeah, come in, Leanne.
I think from the discussions that we've had over the kind of the past few years and up to very recently, there is a real mix. There are people who really prefer to and find it much easier to engage online, and they possibly wouldn't be able to come along to a meeting in person. The other side of that is that there are people who do much prefer to come along to a meeting in a building, and I think for us we do get people engaging online in a way that they wouldn't have in the past, and we really don't want to lose that. So we really are working very hard to try and find a solution. The technology is there, it's just finding the best approach that we can take out into communities. As you know, the council meetings are kind of hybrid meetings, but because they always take place in the one place, they've been able to do that. Because we would need to potentially go out into local communities, we really wouldn't want to lose that additional engagement that we've had online. So we are absolutely looking at solutions questions, but and a decision will be made before the next meeting, and we'll engage with you around that.
That's fine. Just it's been noted in several previous community board meetings that and even tonight, that improving digital inclusion and inclusivity in Shotts Advertiset ward is an absolute priority. That's fine, I get that. But basically, so what that means is that not everybody's got access to the internet to be able to join a meeting like tonight. So I'm just saying that there's like the other side of the coin. And you know, like, and with the best will in the world, you're never going to please everybody. So, but you know, as somebody who attended an in-person meeting earlier this year, there's definitely an appetite from the community to revert back to that.
Absolutely, and that's noted, Louise, and we know that there are different sides to it, and we're absolutely trying to work through it to find the best possible solution, and hopefully by the next cycle that we will have that in place, and we have absolutely taken on board the comments and the points that you are making.
Thanks, Louise, and thanks, Leanne, for that. Colin, I noted that you were on the chat bar and you wanted to come in very quickly to raise a couple of points.
Yeah, just honestly, very, very quickly. Tomorrow I'll send out stuff about, or information I should say, about green space participatory budgeting, of which there's an opportunity to have your say on that, and also the North Lanarkshire Community Lottery, and I'll also send out the other things. I won't go through it. I'll send you the information tomorrow. You can see it yourselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Colin. And again, thanks everyone for attending tonight, and thanks for your contribution. It's really valued, and I think that it was a good meeting tonight. So thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.